Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update. Join the only official Telegram channel of RAU'S IAS Study Circle to get relevant material and important updates. Hello everyone and welcome to the weekly edition of the Daily News Simplified, where we talk about and discusses the articles which are published in the explained section of Indian Express throughout the week and the Sunday edition of the Hindu newspaper. Articles which have been taken for today's discussion are listed on your screen, and the timestamping for these articles is already given in the description box. So let us begin with the first article for the day that we have taken from the Indian Express Explained section. This article appeared on Indian Express Explained section dated 2nd of March. And this article talks about the importance of sea routes which have been taken under for consideration by Turkey to be blocked in order to restrict the movement of Russian forces as far as naval expansion is concerned. You must be well aware that Russia has invaded the Ukraine. And they have invaded the Ukraine against the background of expansion of North Atlantic Treaty Organization. The war has been declared in the eastern side of Europe between Russia and Ukraine. Now, Russia is also looking towards alternative routes, including the naval expansion. But this also brings us to the notice that Russia also requires the expansion of its economy. An economy of Russia, as far as western side is concerned, is based on the trade from Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. But as many of the western countries are doing, Turkey has also taken the initiative to provide a restriction towards the Russian economic development. For this, Russia is trying to utilize the Montreux Convention of 1936 in order to block the maritime movement of Russia towards Ukraine or even its trade using the Black Sea. The relevance of this article is from the General Studies paper 2, which is the international relation, and most important one being the map work. It is more likely that this year's prelim examination may have a question from West Asia or from the eastern part of Europe. So we will analyze the entire map in this perspective in today's article. Well, Turkey would announce to implement the Montreux Convention of 1936 regarding the regime of the straits. This convention would be implemented to limit the movement of Russian warships between Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. The background of the article says that Turkey right now controls the Bosphorus and Dardanelles Strait, which are situated on its land. Turkey has complete control over who will enter into the Black Sea coming from the Mediterranean Sea. So any ship which is arriving from the Mediterranean Sea or rest of the world and would like to enter into the Black Sea will require the permission from the Turkey. Why? Because Turkey, like many other countries, is the nation which is divided into two continents. Russia is one of them, the other is Egypt. Similarly, Turkey is divided into Europe and Asia. Russia, on the other side, has been demanding the relaxation on the Montreux Protocol since the Second World War. If Russia is awarded a relaxation, then the Black Sea would become an important part of Russia's international trade. Ukraine, on the other side, has already asked Turkey to consider this convention and restrict the naval movement of Russia through these routes. Now, the point is why Russia is curious about relaxation on this convention. Well, Russia is looking for faster access to Mediterranean Sea. The trade towards East Africa, Southeast Asia, and South Asia, including India, would be possible through these routes. Oil imports of Russia as well as its gas exports would be possible at higher extent. And Russia knows that it has its warm water ports situated only in the Black Sea. The other ports of Russia are not located in the warm water. Most of them are situated near the Arctic Ocean or at the Bering Strait. Given this situation, Russia is curious to not get Montreux Convention implemented by Turkey. Now let us look into what Montreux's Convention has to say. This convention came into force in 1936, that is the interwar period, a period between two world wars. And the convention says that the Turkey will provide the guarantee of peaceful passage for civilian vessels but can restrict the battleships. This convention targets and includes the Dardanelles Strait and the Bosporus Strait, which also remains a part of Sea of Marmara that we will shortly look into the map. This treaty was signed against the request which was made by Turkey to re-fortify its areas. And because of this convention, Turkey got upper hand in its naval prowess in the eastern part of Europe. This treaty was signed in Montreux, hence it was named so, and the Montreux is situated in Switzerland. And currently, Turkey exercises all military control over these two straits. The convention has also allowed the Turkey to close the strait. Now, this is the matter of concern for Russia. If Turkey today closes down these straits, that will restrict the movement of Russian exports and import. That ultimately will lead towards the economic backwardness of Russia, and Western powers are looking to bring this Montreux Convention through Turkey in order to restrict the expansion of Russia on its economic front. Now let us understand this through the map. As you can see, this map shows the Sea of Marmara. On either side of the Sea of Marmara, you have Turkey. This part of Turkey is under Europe, and this part of Turkey is under Asia. Both of these are separated by the Sea of Marmara. On the northern side, we have Bosporus Strait. On the southern side of Sea of Marmara, we have Dardanelles Strait. If a person or a ship has to move from Black Sea to the Aegean Sea, or even extended beyond to the Mediterranean Sea, that ship or person has to pass from the Bosporus Strait and then to the Dardanelles Strait in this direction. If Turkey today imposes the restrictions, as both these straits as well as Sea of Marmara is part of its territory and also under the military control of Turkey. If Turkey today implements the closure down of these straits, we can easily deduce that that will impact the trade of Russia. This will have two repercussions. First, Russia may be brought down on its knees because economy is the guardian of polity. But if Russia is adamant, it may also bring Turkey into the war and can also invade Turkey in this regard. So this initiative, if taken in future, may have both positive as well as negative repercussions. Now with this, we should also look into the larger map. As you can see from this map locates the Black Sea. As you can see, this is your Black Sea. This small peninsula is your Crimea that was invaded by Russia in 2014. This part is Russia and the upper part is Ukraine. Both these nations are at war right now. This is what we were talking about, is the Sea of Marmara, and this is your Strait of Bosporus, and this is your Strait of Dardanelles. The sea which you are seeing here is Sea of Aegean, and this larger area is your Mediterranean Sea. The eastern part on this map is your Asia and western part is Europe. This area has remained a matter of concern since ages. Even during the World War, during the Crimean War, and even during the Second World War, this area has remained a bone of contention between Russia, the Soviet power, and the western part of Europe separated by US under the Cold War. Because of the ending of the Cold War and disintegration of the USSR, the matter has remained more contentious. With this, we will move to the third map that is also important for you to understand that how many countries actually borders the Black Sea. Well, UPSC can ask simply the number of nations, or they can even ask the order of those nations either from east to west or from north to south. So let us count the number of countries which are located around the Black Sea. The first one is definitely the Ukraine. The second one is Russia. The third one is Georgia. The fourth one is Turkey. Fifth one is Bulgaria. The sixth one is Romania. So there are only 6 countries which actually borders the Black Sea. Do not include Moldova because that does not have any border with the Black Sea. So there are 6 countries that should be clear in your mind. With this entire discussion, I will leave you with this question to practice. So go through this question. This would be your question number 1 and try to answer in the comment box. Let us now move to the next article for the day. This article appeared on Indian Express Explain section dated 4th of March and talks about the impact of Ukraine-Russia war beyond the oil. And this also talks about the impact on India, which is important from the perspective of UPSC examination. The context says the economic impact of Russia's war on Ukraine is not only confined to the oil, that is the crude oil. It is extended even to the agriculture commodities and the fertilizers. And when we talk about the agriculture commodities and the fertilizers, well, how can we miss India? So in this article, we will look into the impact overall, that is impact in general on the international affairs, as well as the positive and negative impact on Indian economy with special reference to agricultural commodities and fertilizers. So if we look into the near impact, well, these are the following aspects. The first one is, or it has disrupted the shipping industries across the world. And the most important impact was seen during the case of Azov Sea and Black Sea. Azov Sea is situated on the northeastern part of the Black Sea and has bordering with Ukraine and Russia. The second issue is that Russian banks are not meeting the international payment requirement. Why? Because of the economic sanctions imposed by the Western countries. Now, as Russian banks are not meeting the international requirement of their payment, there might be the case that certain other countries which have defaulted, certain other countries which have either invested in Russia or have liabilities with the Russian banks might get bankrupt. The third issue is that there is an impact on the oil trade. There are 2 outcomes of this. The first one is more fluctuations and the second one is more speculation. Because of the more speculation, we see that there is a sudden rise in the prices of oil. It has also been seen in the case of India that in the past 1 week we have seen a sudden rise in the crude oil prices that India is importing at. As far as fluctuation is concerned, so fluctuation has led to the demand and supply gap in West Asia. Now, Russia is the second largest gas producer. It is the third largest oil producer as well as coal producer. Now, if Russia is out of the international trade of oil and energy, there might be a greater impact in the international prices of these 3 fossil fuels. The last impact is that there is a disruption in the global investors' sentiment. Now, global investor sentiments are ambiguous right now, and because of this fluctuation, there is a high degree of further fluctuations in the share market or the equity market across the world. The same was visible in the Dalal Street in Mumbai as well. Now, given these 4 instances that you can easily utilize even in your prelim examination and mains examination, the next one is what is the near-term impact on India. And in this case, we will read through the lenses of agriculture. As far as exports are concerned, well, Ukraine and Russia are one of the largest producer of wheat. India is also one of the largest producer of wheat. And given this condition, as both Ukraine and Russia are fighting with each other, there is a vacuum of wheat in the market which has been created. Now, this is an ample space for India to export its wheat at prices which are higher than the MSP. Because as the international prices are higher than the India's MSP region, thanks to the demand and supply gap, Indian farmer can as of now export more wheat into the international markets. On the other side, what we normally see is that most of the crops in the international markets have prices lower than the MSP given by the government in India. That is one of the hindrances why farmers are incapable to export and earn higher profits. The positive side is that because there will be high export of wheat, India's balance of trade would be improved, and in requirement of the government to purchase the wheat under the Food Security Act would be reduced, and that will ultimately reduce the fiscal deficit of the government. This entire cycle shows the cause and effect relationship of the basic economic principle. The second purpose or the benefit would be that there is a high fluctuation in the edible oil prices in the world. As India imports large amount or large quantity of edible oil, including the olive oil, including the canola oil and the palm oil. Now, because there is a high fluctuation in these oil prices, the imports are likely to be reduced. When imports are likely to be reduced, India will have less oil import bill. If India does not do that, India might have higher import bill in the future. In both cases, it will encourage the domestic producers of these crops or oil seeds in the country. Ultimately, it will promote the rain-fed cultivation in the short term. Both these seems to be a good benefit, but there is a setback also, and the setback is that the fertilizer prices including the phosphorus and the potassium are on the rise. As India import these two important fertilizers from outside, India is also likely to get a setback in its import bill on these two important inputs for the crop. So one way or the other, India has to balance between what it is going to export and produce inside the country and what it is going to get at higher prices on the fertilizers front. With this discussion in place, now I will leave you with this question to practice. Read this question carefully and try to answer in the comment box. Let us now move to the next article for the day. This article appeared on page 6 of Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper and talks about an important exercise or defense exercise with the name Vayu Shakti. Now this article is important only from the perspective of prelims examination. So we will go through the important pointers. So Vayu Shakti exercise is a showcase of India's air power. It is conducted at a gap of every 3 years. This time it was scheduled to be conducted in Pokhran, Rajasthan, Jaisalmer district. It is being participated by the Indian Air Force and its different wings, but the reason being that it was postponed by the Defense Minister. And the cause behind the postponement was the issue of logistics because Indian Defense Forces are not able to transfer or maneuver its product from one place to the other. Whatever might be the reason, the defense exercise has been postponed and not cancelled. So in the near future, it will be conducted. So from prelim perspective, these are the 4 pointers that should be in your mind for the examination. With this, let us move to the next article for the day. This article appeared on page 1st of Delhi edition, the Hindu newspaper, and talks about an important and very critically endangered species of sea turtle found in India. The article says that few months ago, the Forest Department in the state of West Bengal has fitted the geopositioning system devices in the turtles in order to track their movement. And to their surprise, they have found that some of these turtles actually migrated to the Bangladesh. Not in the hinterland of Bangladesh, but the coastal areas of Bangladesh. Well, it is not as much a surprise because these turtles are known to survive in the fresh waters, especially in the waters of deltas or estuaries. Now, these turtles are found in the Sundarban part of India, as you can see, and they habitate in the marshy lands mostly. So from this article, there are 2 things that is important for us to read. The first one, that what is the prelim pointers we can take for this turtle, and the name of this turtle is Northern River Terrapin, we should have some prelim pointers for the Sundarban area also. So let us go through them one by one. As far as this turtle is concerned, as you can see, this is the image of the turtle. The elder or the aged turtle in this category have reddish arms and reddish neck. The head mostly remains in the dark shaded color. They are known for their refined turtle behavior. They are native to Southeast Asia, mostly found in the estuaries and the deltic area. Some of them have even migrated to the northern part, and northern here means the northern to the southeast part. That is the reason why they are known as Northern River Terrapin or turtles. Under the IUCN status, they are critically endangered, that is CR category. The unique feature is that they are Asia's largest freshwater and backwater turtles which are found. In India and Bangladesh, they are critically endangered. And that is the reason why GPS collars were used for their tracking. The habitation remains in Bangladesh, India, in and around the Sundarban areas. They are also found in Cambodia, Indonesia, and Malaysia, that is part of Southeast Asia. For India, there has been a breeding program which is going on, and this is a captive breeding project which was established at Sanjne Khali Forest Station situated in Sundarban Tiger Reserve. So all these pointers are important for your prelim examination, so go through them in regular manner. The next point is to learn about Sundarbans. Well, Sundarban is a UNESCO's World Heritage Site. It has been shared between India and Bangladesh. The name of Sundarban is derived from a mangrove tree with the name Sundari. Now, as you must have known, that Sundarban includes one of the largest deltic mangroves ever found in the world. Why? Because India and Bangladesh also shares the world's largest delta created by Ganga, Brahmaputra and Meghna river water. As we have said, it is world's largest halophytic mangrove forest. Halophytic here simply means salt tolerant, or trees which are grown in high salt water. The area also includes the largest tiger reserve of India as well as the national park. It is home to India's most iconic wildlife species, also endangered, with the name Royal Bengal tiger. And from the prelim pointers, it has the Halliday Island Wildlife Sanctuary and the Bhagbatpur Crocodile Sanctuary. So as we have discussed, all these points are important for your prelim examination as a factual pointers. So do remember them and revise them regularly. With this article discussion, I will leave you with this question to practice. So read this question carefully and answer in the comment box. Let us now move to the next article for the day. This article appeared on page 11 of Delhi edition Hindu newspaper under the frequently asked questions and talks about the mission creep on NATO expansionism. Now, the context of the article is closely related to what is happening in Russia and Ukraine, or what Russia is doing as a countermeasure to protect its western borders. We will read this article less from the international perspective, but more from the perspective of world history. Now, world history has a very important element, and this year also in the mains examination conducted in January, there was a question associated with the World War in the GS paper 1. So from that perspective, we will try to analyze these article and the current aspect of Russia's expansionism policy and why it is considered to be a mission creep. And after conducting this entire discussion, you will be in a position to get answers to these questions. That is, what is mission creep? What are the origins behind the NATO and why does it matter to Russia? We will read into the context of NATO and its expansionism. What are the rounds of expansionism which has been carried out by NATO and not Russia? Why Russia is so sensitive about NATO's expansionism, and did NATO violate any other promises that it has created previously? The context of the article says that Russian President Vladimir Putin military expansion on Ukraine was a reactionary move against the NATO's expansion towards the east, covering the Ukrainian as its member. Now, from the perspective of history, we will go through this article and look into why we are at the current situation. So, from this discussion, we'll look into the simplest possible manner to understand the entire history between Russia and NATO. But before that, let us understand what is mission creep. Mission creep is not any military agenda or a project. It simply means the creep, which is a geographical term. Creep here simply means that there is a gradual or the incremental expansion of something. In geography, we talk about the expansion of soil down the hill slope. In military term, mission creep is the incremental or the gradual intervention, project or mission which goes beyond the original scope. This term was first of all used in 1993 in the Washington Post. Now, why the article has talked about this mission creep as an important term? The point being that NATO, which was created in 1949, has retreated and again promised to the entire world community that it will not expand its membership in Eastern Europe. This was supported by the US even in 1992 and 93, that is after the disintegration of USSR. Now, if the original scope or original focus of NATO was not to expand in the Eastern Europe, then how come countries in the Eastern Europe such as Poland or even the Ukraine are aspiring to become the member of NATO? Why NATO has not fulfilled its own promise, or why NATO is looking towards expanding its membership towards the Eastern Europe, knowing the fact that this will jeopardize the geopolitics as well as will instigate the Russians towards the military invasion of these small countries. And the objective will remain the same, that this will be seen as a new Cold War between the communist policy formulated in Russia and the capitalist ideology supported by the US. Now, the victim of these new Cold War agenda will always be the small countries in the Eastern Europe, the recent one being the Ukraine. We already have the victims in Georgia, we already have the victims in Crimea. Now, this is the term of mainland Ukraine. If we go through the historical perspective, as you can see, this is the area which is considered to be a part of Cold War military grouping or expansionism. The countries which are shaded in the green are the countries of NATO. The countries which are shaded in the pink color are the Warsaw Pact. Now, the point is, what is Warsaw Pact? Now, as we have discussed, in 1949, NATO came into existence. This was the first initiative of the expansion of capitalist ideology through military terms, in which US guided organization was created to create a single grouping for military expansionism or the military ideology. Now, the countries which were ruled by the communist ideology, that is the Soviet Union, and the similar ideology following countries like East Germany, which was the result of Second World War, Poland, Czechoslovakia, which later divided, Hungary, Romania, and other countries such as Ukraine, which came into existence after the disintegration of USSR. Now, these countries were afraid. Afraid of what? They were afraid of NATO expansionism. And the country which was most afraid was Russia, the erstwhile leader of Soviet Union. Given that fear, Warsaw Pact was signed in 1955. The reason was simple. There is an article under the NATO Act which is the Article 5. Under this article, an attack in one of the NATO member means attack on all the members. Let's say Soviet Union is planning to attack the West Germany. That simply means that it is attacking all the members of NATO. Fearing this, Soviet Union with other countries of Eastern Europe came across the Warsaw Pact, and this pact was viewed as a direct strategic counterweight to NATO. There were a number of countries which joined the Warsaw Pact, and it was seen as two important groupings standing one against each other. It was more like the communist countries are fighting to the capitalist countries for the basis of their ideology. But none of them actually fought. Warsaw Pact and NATO actually came across as a deterrence force towards the Third World War and ultimately created the expanded version of Cold War that lasted till the disintegration of the Soviet Union. Now, because the communist philosophy actually started degrading and disintegrating, there were a number of nations which were going through the economic turmoil or economic recessions during 1980s. And ultimately, in the late 1980s, there was the disintegration of the Soviet Union. And so was the disintegration of the Warsaw Pact signed in 1955. After the failure of Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact, Russia became more skeptical towards the NATO. And Russia demanded that NATO should not expand further to the eastern part of Europe in order to protect its own territory. But nothing has actually happened. There were countries, including the East Germany, joined NATO. And one after the other, many countries began joining the NATO forces and keep on increasing the skeptical nature of Russia towards the NATO. As you can see from this map, there were a number of countries on the eastern part of Europe that joined the NATO. It includes Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Slovakia, Hungary, Poland, Germany, including the East Germany. And that has actually ended up bringing more hatred among the Russian forces towards NATO organization. Now, Russia cannot attack a particular NATO country because attack on one country means attack on the entire nation. So what Russia did? Russia started attacking those countries which were in a process to join NATO. Because once you attack a country which is in the process of joining NATO, the other member countries are not going to attack on you. So Russia attacked Georgia, Russia attacked Crimea, and now they have attacked the Ukraine as well. So this was the basic background. The fear of one country, that is Russia, has ultimately led to the attacking on the other countries. So it's all about a fear game. NATO was fear of communist ideology. So they created a grouping. Russia and the Soviet Union was fear of NATO. So they created Warsaw Pact. Communist ideology was fear of capitalism. They saw the downgraded of their economic situation. Lower economic situation led to the fear of disintegration and ultimately Soviet Union came to an end. The fear of being pressed by Russia forced the leftover countries of Eastern Europe to join NATO, including Ukraine and Georgia. So it was all a fear game that has led one country to the other side of these two important geopolitical powers of Russia and US. Ultimately, it remains the game between Russia and US about their ideology and their philosophy towards ruling the entire global geopolitics. With this discussion in place, now we come to the end of today's Daily News Simplified, and we will move towards the question of the day. The answer to yesterday's question of the day was option D. That is, the ruling party does not choose the members to become speaker or the deputy speaker. It is the assembly which decides the position. Secondly, speakers and deputy speakers are not removed through the spatial majority. So both the statements are incorrect, hence the answer was option D. Today's question is that consider the following statement. Vayu Shakti is a joint exercise of Indian and the US Air Force. Second statement says that it is conducted in the Pokhran region of Rajasthan. And the third statement says that this exercise is conducted to showcase the air power of India. You have to select the correct answer and please comment in the comment box. Thank you.